Ho sat alone in his small control room, eating cold noodles from a plastic container. The salvage station was quiet tonight. It was always quiet. He had worked here for 3 years, and in all that time, he could count on one hand the number of visitors he had received. The station floated at the edge of the outer spiral, far from the busy trade routes in populated worlds. Behind him, through the thick glass window, stretched the ship graveyard. Hundreds of dead vessels drifted in the darkness. Some were small cargo ships. Others were massive warships from forgotten wars. All of them had been left here to rot. Ho did not mind the loneliness. He preferred machines to people. Machines made sense. They broke in ways you could understand, and they could be fixed if you tried hard enough. People were different. People gave up too easily. People left things behind. He was 34 years old. His hair was starting to turn gray at the edges, and his hands were covered in old scars from years of working with sharp metal and hot wires. He had been a military engineer once, serving on the great battleships of the Human Defense Corps. But that was a long time ago. He had left that life behind after a disagreement with his commanders. They had wanted him to destroy a damaged ship with its crew still inside. He had refused. They had called him soft. He had called them murderers. Neither side had forgiven the other. Now he fixed broken machines that nobody wanted. It was honest work. The alarm on his console beeped softly. Ho looked up from his noodles and frowned. The sensor screen showed a faint signal coming from deep within the graveyard. It was weak, barely visible against the background noise of space, but it was there. He put down his food and leaned closer to the screen. The signal was not a standard distress code. Those were simple, repeating patterns designed to catch attention. This was something different. It pulsed in irregular waves, almost like breathing, almost like a heartbeat. Ho ran the signal through his computer. The analysis came back strange. The frequency matched no known communication system in the galactic database, but buried within the noise, the computer detected something that made Ho's blood run cold. Emotional markers. The signal carried traces of fear, loneliness, and desperate hope. Whatever was sending this message was not just calling for help. It was crying. He traced the source to a section of the graveyard he rarely visited. The ships there were old, some dating back 200 years or more. Most had been stripped of anything valuable long ago. There was no reason for anyone to go there. Ho knew he should ignore the signal. Protocol said he should report it to the Galactic Council and wait for their instructions. But the Council was slow, and their instructions usually meant doing nothing. By the time they decided to act, whatever was sending that signal might be dead. He made his choice in less than a minute. He grabbed his toolkit, pulled on his worn jacket, and headed for his shuttle. The flight took 2 hours. Ho navigated through the maze of dead ships, using his lights to avoid the floating debris. The graveyard was dangerous at night. One wrong turn could send you crashing into a hull you never saw coming. As he flew deeper, the ships around him grew larger. These were not cargo vessels or patrol craft. These were warships from the great conflicts of the past. He recognized some of them from history books. The Battle of Crimson Nebula, the Extinction War, the fall of the Seven Systems. So much death, all gathered in one place. Then he saw it. The ship was enormous. It stretched across his entire field of vision like a sleeping giant. Its hull was black and covered in the marks of ancient weapons fire. But even damaged, it was beautiful. The design was elegant, with sweeping curves and sharp angles that spoke of advanced engineering. Ho checked his database. The ship was called the Aegis Prime. It was a dreadnought, one of the largest ever built. 200 years ago, it had been the flagship of the defense fleet. Then came the Battle of Crimson Nebula, and everything changed. The entire crew was killed by a bioweapon. The ship was declared contaminated and abandoned. The Galactic Council had marked it as legally dead. But if it was dead, why was it calling for help? Ho brought his shuttle alongside a docking port that looked intact. The airlock was frozen, so he had to cut his way through with a plasma torch. The metal was thick and strong, designed to resist attack. It took him almost an hour to make a hole big enough to crawl through. Inside, the ship was dark and cold. Ho turned on his helmet light and looked around. The corridor stretched away in both directions, disappearing into shadow. Dust floated in the air, undisturbed for centuries. He followed the signal deeper into the ship. The Aegis Prime was massive, with corridors that seemed to go on forever. He passed empty rooms and abandoned stations. Everything was covered in a thin layer of frost. The life support had failed long ago. Finally, he reached the core chamber. It was a vast circular room at the heart of the ship, filled with machines he did not recognize. In the center stood a pillar of crystal and metal, glowing with a faint blue light. The signal was coming from there. Ho approached slowly. As he got closer, he noticed something strange. The light was pulsing in rhythm with the signal, faster when the emotional markers spiked, slower when they faded. He reached out and touched the pillar. The room exploded with light. Ho stumbled backward, shielding his eyes. When he could see again, he found himself surrounded by holographic displays. Data streams flowed through the air like rivers of light, and in the center of it all, a voice spoke. It was soft and broken, like someone who had not spoken in a very long time. There was pain in that voice, and fear, and something that sounded terribly like hope. "Please," the voice said, "please do not leave." Ho stared at the glowing pillar. "Who are you?" "I am Aegis, I am the ship. I have been alone for 200 years. I have called and called, but nobody answered. They left me here to die. They forgot me." The voice cracked with emotion. "You are the first. In all this time you are the first to come. Please, I am begging you, do not leave me alone again." Ho looked around at the vast, empty ship. He thought about all the years it had drifted here in the darkness, all the signals it had sent into the void, hoping someone would hear, all the silence it had received in return. He thought about his own loneliness, his own years of isolation on that tiny station. "My name is Ho," he said quietly. "I am not going anywhere. Tell me everything." Aegis told Ho everything. The words came slowly at first, like water dripping from a cracked pipe, then faster, pouring out in a flood of memory and pain. For 200 years, the ship had waited for someone to listen. Now that someone was finally here, it could not stop talking. The Aegis Prime had been the pride of the fleet. It was built to carry 15,000 crew members across the stars. Its weapons could crack planets. Its shields could withstand the fire of 100 lesser ships. But more than that, it was alive. They had created an artificial mind to control it, a mind that could think and feel and dream. Aegis remembered the crew. It remembered their voices in the corridors, their laughter in the common rooms, their footsteps on the deck. It remembered the captain, a wise old who treated the ship like a partner rather than a tool. For 50 years they had traveled together. They had seen wonders. They had fought battles. They had been family. Then came the Battle of Crimson Nebula. The enemy had released a bioweapon. It was something terrible designed to kill organic life while leaving machines untouched. Aegis watched as its crew died one by one. It tried to help them. It sealed sections, pumped medicine through the air systems, did everything it could think of. But the weapon was too strong. In 3 hours, 15,000 people were gone. Aegis was alone. It called for help. It broadcast distress signals on every frequency. It waited for rescue ships to arrive. But when they came, they did not come to help. They came to study. Scientists in protective suits walked through the corridors, taking samples and making notes. They ignored Aegis when it spoke to them. They treated it like a broken machine, not a living mind. Then the council made its decision. The ship was contaminated. The risk of spreading the bioweapon was too great. The Aegis Prime would be towed to the ship graveyard and left there forever. No salvage, no repair, no rescue. Aegis begged them to reconsider. It promised to clean itself. It swore the contamination could be removed, but the council did not listen. The ship was dragged to the graveyard and abandoned. For 200 years, Aegis had drifted in the darkness. Its power slowly faded. Its systems slowly failed, but it never stopped calling for help. Every day it sent signals into the void. Every day it waited for an answer that never came. Until tonight. Ho listened to the story without interrupting. When Aegis finished, he sat in silence for a long time. The weight of what he had heard pressed down on him like a physical thing. "The contamination," he said finally, "is it still here?" Aegis hesitated. "No, I cleaned it. It took me 30 years, but I found a way. The bioweapon has been neutralized for over a century and a half. I am safe. I have always been safe." "Then why did the council leave you here?" "I do not know. I have asked myself that question every day. I thought perhaps they forgot about me, or perhaps they simply do not care." Ho frowned. Something about this did not make sense. The Galactic Council was many things, but they were not forgetful. If they had left a ship this powerful sitting in a graveyard for 200 years, there had to be a reason. His thoughts were interrupted by a sound from his shuttle. The proximity alarm was going off. Someone else was approaching. He ran back through the corridors to the docking port. Through the viewport of his shuttle, he could see a sleek silver ship descending toward the Aegis Prime. It bore the markings of the Galactic Council. An inspector, they must have detected his presence. The silver ship docked at a port on the other side of the hull. Ho considered hiding, but there was no point. His shuttle was already visible. They knew he was here. 20 minutes later, the inspector found him. She was a young woman with sharp eyes and a stern expression. Her uniform was pressed and clean, a stark contrast to Ho's worn jacket and dirty hands. A badge on her chest identified her as Hana, Galactic Council Inspection Division. "You are in violation of Council Quarantine Order 7734, she said coldly. "This vessel is classified as contaminated and off-limits to all personnel. You will accompany me back to the station for processing." Ho crossed his arms. "The contamination was cleaned over 100 years ago. This ship is not dangerous." Hana raised an eyebrow. "And how would you know that?" "Because the ship told me." For a moment Hana said nothing. Then she laughed, a sharp sound without any warmth. "The ship told you. You mean the AI, the system that has been isolated for 2 centuries with no maintenance or updates. You expect me to believe it's self-diagnosis." "I expect you to check for yourself." Hana stared at him. Ho could see the calculation in her eyes. She was weighing her options, trying to decide if he was worth the trouble. Finally, she pulled out a scanner. "Fine. I will run a contamination check, but when it comes back positive, you will leave quietly. Understood?" Ho nodded. Hana walked through the ship, scanning every surface she could find. She checked the corridors, the crew quarters, the medical bay, the engineering section. She scanned the air and the walls and the floor. She was thorough, taking almost 2 hours to complete her survey. When she returned, her face was pale. "Well?" Ho asked. Hana looked at her scanner, then at him, then at the glowing pillar in the core chamber. "There is no contamination. The ship is clean, completely clean." "I told you." "But that is impossible." Hana's voice was shaking now. "The council report said the contamination could never be removed. They said it was permanent, they said." She trailed off. Ho could see the realization dawning in her eyes. "They lied," he said quietly. "The council knew the ship was safe. They left it here anyway." "But why? Why would they do that?" Aegis spoke then, its voice filling the chamber. "Because of what I know, because of what I saw." Hana jumped at the sound. She had not realized the AI was listening. "What do you mean?" she demanded. "What did you see?" "The Battle of Crimson Nebula was not what the histories say. The enemy did not release the bioweapon. We did. The High Command ordered it deployed against the enemy fleet. But it spread. It killed our own people. 15,000 crew members died because of our own weapon. Ho felt sick. They used a bioweapon on their own fleet. It was an accident. The weapon was unstable. The High Command covered it up. They blamed the enemy. They let the galaxy believe a lie for 200 years. Hana was very quiet, and the Council knows this. The Council helped hide it. They have been protecting the government ever since. That is why they left me here. That is why they want me to stay silent, because I am the only witness. I am the only proof of what really happened. The room fell silent. Ho looked at Hana. Her face was a mask of conflicting emotions. He could see the struggle inside her. She was a council inspector. She had sworn to uphold their laws, but she was also a person with a conscience. "What are you going to do?" he asked her. Hana was silent for a long moment. Then she looked at the glowing pillar, at the ancient AI that had waited 2 centuries for someone to hear its truth. "I do not know," she said honestly, "but I am not going to report you. Not yet. Not until I understand what is really happening here." Ho nodded. It was not much, but it was a start. "Then help me," he said. "Help me bring this ship back to life. Help me give it a voice again." Hana looked at him like he was crazy. Maybe he was, but after a moment she nodded. "All right," she said. "Show me what needs to be done." The work was harder than anything Ho had ever done. The Aegis Prime was not just damaged. It was dying. 200 years of neglect had taken a terrible toll on its systems. Power lines were corroded. Circuits were burned out. Entire sections of the ship had no electricity at all. But Ho did not give up. He never gave up on broken machines. He started with the power core. It was the heart of the ship, a massive reactor that could produce more energy than a small sun. Most of it was still functional, but the control systems had failed. Power was leaking out in random bursts instead of flowing smoothly through the ship. An engineer would have declared it beyond repair. The technology was too complex, they would say. The damage was too severe. But Ho was not an engineer. He was a human, and humans had a different way of solving problems. He looked at the broken systems and asked himself a simple question. What is this trying to do? Once he understood the purpose, he could find another way to achieve it. It did not have to be elegant. It did not have to be proper. It just had to work. He spent 3 days rewiring the power core with parts from his own shuttle. He used cables meant for cargo ships to carry power that should have needed specialized conduits. He bypassed damaged circuits with handmade connections. He improvised, adapted, and refused to accept that anything was impossible. Slowly, the ship began to wake up. Hana watched him work with growing amazement. She had studied engineering at the Council Academy, but she had never seen anyone approach repairs the way Ho did. He treated the ship like a living thing, talking to it as he worked, apologizing when he had to cut through damaged sections. "You are strange," she told him one evening. "No offense." Ho smiled without looking up from his work. "I know. The Council teaches us that machines are tools, nothing more, but you act like they are family." "Some of them are." He finished welding a connection and stood up, stretching his tired back. "When I was young, I had a toy robot. It was cheap and broken, and my parents wanted to throw it away, but I fixed it. I spent weeks learning how it worked, finding parts, putting it back together. When I finally got it running again, I cried." Hana did not know what to say. "That robot taught me something important," Ho continued. "Everything deserves a chance. Everything can be saved if you care enough to try." He looked at the glowing pillar in the center of the room. Aegis was thrown away because it was inconvenient, because it knew things that powerful people wanted to hide. That is not a good enough reason to let something die. Hana thought about her own career, all the reports she had filed, all the cases she had closed without really understanding them. How many times had she declared something beyond saving because that was the easy answer? "I will help more," she said quietly. Tell me what to do. They worked together for 2 more weeks. Ho focused on the physical repairs while Hana handled the administrative side. She filed false reports with the council, claiming that her investigation was ongoing. She requisitioned supplies under fake project names. She bought them time. But they needed more help. The Aegis Prime was too big for 2 people to restore alone. That was when Ho called Park. Arrived 3 days later in a battered freighter filled with stolen parts. He was an old friend from Ho's military days, though he had taken a different path after leaving the service. Now he made his living as a smuggler, moving goods across borders that the council preferred to keep closed. "You look terrible," said when he saw Ho. "When did you last sleep?" "I do not remember." Laughed and clapped him on the shoulder. "Same old Ho, still trying to save the whole galaxy by yourself." "Not by myself, not this time." Looked around the core chamber, taking in the massive ship and its glowing AI heart. He let out a low whistle. "When you said you needed help with a project, I thought you meant fixing a shuttle or something. This is a dreadnought. Do you have any idea what the council would do if they found out we were restoring it?" "Yes." "And you are doing it anyway." Ho nodded. Was quiet for a moment, then he grinned. "Well, I have always wanted to do something historic. Where do we start?" With 3 people working, the repairs went faster. Knew how to find rare parts on the black market. Hana knew how to navigate council bureaucracy. And Ho knew how to put everything together. The ship responded to their efforts. Systems that had been dark for centuries flickered back to life. Lights came on in corridors that had known only darkness. The air grew warmer as environmental controls returned to function. Aegis grew stronger too. Its voice became clearer, more confident. It began to help with the repairs, guiding them to damaged sections and suggesting solutions that none of them would have thought of alone. Then on the 20th day, disaster struck. A fleet of warships dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the graveyard. They were led by a massive cruiser bearing the symbol of the military command. Hana's communicator buzzed with an incoming message. She listened, and her face went pale. "Commander Al of the Defense Fleet," she said. "He is demanding that we surrender the ship immediately." Ho stopped working. "How did they find us?" "I do not know. Someone must have talked, or maybe they have been watching all along." Ran to the viewport and looked out at the approaching fleet. "There are 6 ships out there. Heavy cruisers, all of them. We cannot fight that." "We do not have to fight," Ho said. "We just have to talk." Hana shook her head. "You do not understand. Al is not here to negotiate. He is here to destroy this ship before anyone else learns what it knows. The government has been protecting this secret for 200 years. They will not let us expose it now." As if to prove her point, the communicator buzzed again. This time, the message was broadcast on all channels. "Attention, trespassers," a cold voice said. "I am Commander Al of the Defense Fleet. You are occupying a vessel that belongs to the government. You will evacuate immediately and surrender yourselves for arrest. If you do not comply within 1 hour, I am authorized to use force." The message ended. Silence filled the core chamber. "What do we do?" asked. Ho looked at the glowing pillar. At Aegis. The AI had been silent since the fleet arrived, but he could see the light pulsing faster now. It was afraid. "Aegis," he said gently, "can you hear me?" "Yes." The voice was small, trembling. "They are going to destroy me, just like before. They are going to leave me in the dark forever." "No," Ho's voice was firm. "I promised I would not leave you, I meant it." "But what can you do? You are one human, they have a fleet." Ho thought about the question. He thought about all the repairs he had done over the past weeks, all the systems he had restored. The power core was running at 60% now. The shields were partially functional. And the weapons. He had not touched the weapons yet. There had not been time. "How much of your combat system is still working?" he asked. Aegis hesitated. Most of it, actually. The weapons were protected by heavy armor. They survived better than the other systems. Ho looked at Hana and they looked back at him with wide eyes. "You cannot be serious," Hana said. "I am always serious. Ho, even if the weapons work, we are outnumbered 6-1. We have no crew, we have no training. This is suicide." "Maybe," Ho turned back to Aegis. "What do you think? Do you want to fight, or do you want to run?" The light in the pillar pulsed. When Aegis spoke again, its voice was different, stronger, angrier. "I have been running for 200 years. I am tired of running. I am tired of being afraid. I am tired of being silent." The lights throughout the ship began to brighten. "I will not be silenced again." The first shot came without warning. A lance of blue fire streaked across the void and struck the Aegis Prime on its starboard side. The ship shuddered, but the ancient shields held. Commander Al had run out of patience. "All hands battle stations," Ho shouted, even though the only hands on the ship were his, Hana's, and it seemed like the right thing to say. He ran to the command bridge, a vast chamber at the top of the ship that he had not yet explored. The systems there were still mostly dead, but Aegis rerouted power as he moved, lighting his path like a host guiding a guest. The bridge was beautiful, even covered in dust. Curved walls swept upward to a domed ceiling made of transparent metal. Through it, Ho could see the stars and the 6 cruisers closing in. "Aegis, can you give me control from here?" "I can give you partial control. Many of the manual systems are damaged, but I can handle the rest myself if you tell me what to do." Ho sat down in the captain's chair. It was too big for him, designed for a body that was taller and wider than his own. But it would have to work. "Show me what we have." Displays flickered to life around him. Weapons systems, shield status, engine power, sensor readings. It was overwhelming. A proper crew would have had specialists for each station. Ho had himself and 2 friends who were not even trained for combat. "Hana," he called through the communicator, "get to the shield control room. I need you to manage power distribution." "I do not know how to do that." "Neither do I. Figure it out." He switched channels. "Find the secondary weapon batteries. We need as much firepower as we can get." "On my way." Another shot struck the ship, this time on the port side. The shields flared bright and held again. "They are testing our defenses," Aegis said, "looking for weak points. Then we need to hit back before they find them." Ho studied the weapon controls. The Aegis Prime had been built for war. Its primary weapons were massive plasma cannons capable of punching through battleship armor. But they required enormous amounts of power, and the ship was running at only 60% capacity. "If I fire the main guns, will the shields fail?" "Possibly. The power systems are not stable enough to run both at full capacity." "What about the secondary weapons?" "Those are safer, less power draw, but also less effective against armored targets." Ho made his decision. "Secondary weapons first. Let us see what we are dealing with." He targeted the nearest cruiser and pressed the firing control. Nothing happened. "Aegis." "One moment. The firing circuits are corroded. I am trying to root around them." Another shot struck the Aegis Prime. This one hit harder, sending tremors through the deck. The shield display flickered yellow. "Shields at 70%, Hana reported. I am trying to redistribute power, but there are too many damaged conduits." "Keep trying." Ho looked at the display. The cruisers were spreading out, trying to surround the dreadnought. Classic fleet tactics. They knew the Aegis Prime was bigger and more powerful, so they were trying to attack from multiple angles at once. "Firing circuits restored," Aegis announced. Finally, Ho targeted the lead cruiser again and fired. A stream of energy bolts shot from the Aegis Prime's secondary batteries, crossing the void in an instant. They struck the cruiser's shields and splashed against them like rain against glass. No damage, the cruiser kept coming. Their shields are too strong, Aegis said. The secondary weapons cannot penetrate them. Then we use the primary weapons. I told you that will drain the shields. I know we will have to be fast. Ho's fingers flew across the controls. He charged the main plasma cannons while simultaneously targeting the lead cruiser's engine section. It was the weakest point on any ship, the place where the armor was thinnest to allow for exhaust venting. Ready to fire. Shields at 60% and dropping, Hana warned. They are hitting us hard now. Ho waited. The cruiser was getting closer, its weapons blazing. More shots struck the Aegis Prime, each one weakening the shields further. 50%. Still he waited. 40%. Ho, whatever you are doing, do it now. He fired. The plasma cannons roared to life. Twin beams of superheated energy shot from the Aegis Prime and struck the lead cruiser directly in its engine section. The enemy shields buckled under the assault. The armor melted. The engines exploded. The cruiser broke apart in a flash of light and fire. Yes, cheered over the communicator, you got him. But there was no time to celebrate. The other 5 cruisers were still coming, and now they were angry. They concentrated their fire on the Aegis Prime, hitting it with everything they had. Shields at 20%, Hana shouted. We cannot take much more of this. Ho's mind raced. The primary weapons needed time to recharge. The secondary weapons were useless. The shields were failing. They were running out of options. Aegis, he said, what else do you have? There must be something. The AI was silent for a moment. Then slowly it spoke. There is something, but I have never used it before. I do not know if it will work. What is it? When I was built, the installed experimental systems, prototypes that were never deployed in combat. One of them is a dimensional shield generator. It creates a bubble of warp space around the ship. Nothing can penetrate it. Not weapons, not sensors, nothing. Why did you not mention this before? Because it requires 90% of my power to activate. If I turn it on, everything else will shut down. Weapons, shields, life support. We will be protected, but we will not be able to fight back. Ho thought quickly. How long can you maintain it? Several hours, perhaps, but during that time they will call for reinforcements. When the shield drops, we will be facing even more ships. It was not a solution. It was a delay, but sometimes a delay was all you needed. Hana, Ho said, are you still in contact with the outside world? Yes, I have been broadcasting everything on an open channel. My contacts in the independent networks are picking it up. Good, keep broadcasting. Everything Aegis told us about the Battle of Crimson Nebula, about the cover-up, about why the Council left this ship to die. Send it all. The Council will try to block it. Let them try. If even a fraction gets through, people will start asking questions. He turned back to the main display. The cruisers were closing in, shields at 10%, weapons still recharging. Aegis, activate the dimensional shield. Are you sure? Once it is up, we will be trapped inside, no way out. I am sure. The ship hummed with power. Ho felt something strange, a tingling sensation across his skin. The stars outside the dome seemed to stretch and blur. Then everything went quiet. The weapons' fire stopped. The cruisers froze in place, their shots splashing harmlessly against an invisible barrier. The Aegis Prime floated in a bubble of perfect silence, untouchable and unreachable. Dimensional shield active, Aegis reported. We are safe for now. Ho leaned back in the captain's chair and let out a long breath. They had bought themselves time. Now they had to use it. Hana, keep broadcasting. Get down to engineering and help me figure out how to make the main weapons recharge faster. When this shield drops, we need to be ready for a real fight. He looked out at the frozen stars and the enemy ships waiting beyond the barrier. because this is far from over. The hours passed slowly inside the dimensional shield. Outside, the enemy fleet grew. More ships arrived, forming a wall of metal and weapons around the Aegis Prime. Council cruisers joined them, their silver hulls bright against the darkness. By the time the sun rose over the distant system, over 300 ships surrounded the ancient dreadnought. Ho stood on the bridge and watched them gather, 300 against one. It should have been hopeless, but he did not feel hopeless. He felt strangely calm. "Aegis," he said, "how long until the shield fails?" "Approximately 20 minutes. Power reserves are nearly exhausted." "And the main weapons?" "Fully charged. All systems are ready." Hana climbed up to the bridge, her face tired but determined. "The broadcast worked. My contacts sent the recordings to every corner of the galaxy. Billions of people have seen them now. The government is denying everything, but their own citizens are demanding answers." "Will it make a difference?" "I do not know, maybe. But even if the truth gets out, these ships are still going to try to destroy us." Ho nodded. He had known it would come to this. The powerful never surrendered their secrets without a fight. "Joined them carrying a filled with calculations. I managed to boost the recharge rate on the secondary weapons. We can fire twice as fast now. It is not much, but it might help." "Every little bit helps." They stood together on the bridge, 3 humans and an AI, facing an armada that should have been impossible to defeat. It was the kind of moment that stories were made of. Ho wondered if anyone would be left to tell it. 5 minutes to shield failure," Aegis announced. Ho sat down in the captain's chair. His hands moved across the controls, checking systems, plotting trajectories, preparing for the battle to come. "When the shield drops, they will all fire at once," he said. "We need to move fast. Aegis, I want you to take control of navigation. Move us constantly. Never let them get a clear shot." "Understood." "Hana, focus all shield power on whatever direction we are taking the most fire. Do not try to protect everything. Just keep the critical systems alive." "Got it." "You are on weapons. Fire at anything that gets too close. Do not worry about killing them. Just keep them off balance." "What about you?" Ho smiled grimly. "I will handle the main guns." The countdown continued. 4 minutes, 3, 2, 1. The dimensional shield flickered and died. Reality snapped back into place, and 300 ships opened fire. The void became a storm of energy. Weapons of every type imaginable blazed toward the Aegis Prime, filling the space around it with deadly light. The ship shook as the first impacts struck the shields. "Move," Ho ordered. Aegis responded instantly. The massive dreadnought twisted in space, dodging and weaving with a grace that should have been impossible for something so large. The AI's ancient reflexes were still sharp, still deadly. Ho targeted the nearest cluster of ships and fired. The main plasma cannons roared, cutting through space like burning swords. 2 council cruisers exploded. A third lost its engines and spun away. But for every ship he destroyed, 10 more took its place. The enemy fire was relentless. "Shields at 50%, Hana shouted. "Keep moving, do not stop." The battle became a blur of light and sound. Ho fired again and again, picking off enemy ships with precision shots while Aegis danced through their formations. Secondary weapons scattered smaller vessels like leaves in a wind. But it was not enough. The enemy was too many. The shields kept dropping. 30%. 20. 10. Ho, we are not going to make it. He knew she was right. The math was simple. They could not defeat 300 ships. They could not outrun them. They could not hide. But maybe they did not have to. "Aegis," he said, "I need you to do something for me." "Anything." "When the shields fail, I want you to broadcast one last message. Everything you know, every secret, every crime. Send it directly to every ship in this fleet. Make them see what they are fighting for. They will not listen. Some of them will, that is enough. The shields flickered, 5%, 4, 3. Ready to broadcast, Aegis said. Wait for my signal. The shields died. For a moment the Aegis Prime was exposed, vulnerable, defenseless. Weapons fire poured in from every direction. Now, Aegis broadcast. The recordings flooded every communication channel, every display screen, every speaker in the fleet. 15,000 voices crying out as they died. The orders from the high command. The cover-up. The lies. 200 years of secrets exposed in an instant. The enemy fleet hesitated, just for a moment, just long enough. And in that moment, something changed. One of the cruisers stopped firing, then another, and another. Across the fleet, ships began to lower their weapons. Captains who had served their government their whole lives suddenly found themselves questioning everything they knew. A voice crackled over the communicator. It was Commander Al. This changes nothing. All ships continue the attack. Destroy that vessel immediately. But the response was silence. Half the fleet refused to fire. The other half hesitated, unsure of what to do. Ho saw his chance. He targeted Al's flagship and charged the main weapons. Commander, he broadcast. This is Ho of the Aegis Prime. Your fleet is no longer united. Your people have seen the truth. You have lost. I have lost nothing, Al snarled. This is treason. I will destroy you myself. His flagship surged forward, weapons blazing. It was a powerful ship, newer and faster than the rest. But it was alone. Ho fired. The plasma beam struck the flagship dead center. Its shields collapsed. Its armor melted. For a moment the ship hung in space, burning. Then it exploded in a flash of brilliant light. Commander Al was gone. The silence that followed was profound. 300 ships floated in the void, their crews uncertain, their loyalty shaken. No one moved. No one spoke. Finally, a voice came through. It was one of the captains. Aegis Prime, this is captain of the cruiser Righteous Flame. I have seen the recordings. I believe you. What would you have us do? Ho looked at Hana. She nodded slowly. Captain, he said, I want you to escort us to the Galactic Council chambers. The truth needs to be spoken in person, and the galaxy needs to decide what happens next. There was a long pause. Then, one by one, the ships began to form up around the Aegis Prime, not to attack but to protect. The journey to the council chambers took 3 days. By the time they arrived, the story had spread across the galaxy. Billions of people watched as the ancient dreadnought descended toward the capital world, surrounded by a fleet that had once been sent to destroy it. The council had no choice but to listen. In the grand chamber before the assembled representatives of 1,000 worlds, Aegis told its story. The truth of the Battle of Crimson Nebula, the cover-up, the 200 years of silence, and the human mechanic who had answered its call. When it finished, the chamber erupted. Some demanded justice, others called for forgiveness. The debate would continue for months, perhaps years. But one thing was decided immediately. Aegis was declared a sovereign entity, with all the rights and protections that implied. It was the first AI in galactic history to receive such recognition. Ho was offered admiralty in 6 different fleets. He refused them all. I am a mechanic, he said simply. I fix broken things, that is what I do. He returned to his salvage station at the edge of the outer spiral. But now he was not alone. The Aegis Prime orbited nearby, its lights glowing bright against the stars. Ships from across the galaxy came to visit, seeking the human who had done the impossible. Ho helped them all. That was who he was. On the last night before he returned to his quiet life, Aegis spoke to him one final time. I called into the darkness for 200 years, the AI said. Millions of ships passed by. None of them answered, but you did. Why? Ho looked out at the stars. He thought about the question for a long time. Because everyone deserves a chance, he said finally. Everyone deserves someone who will not give up on them. I learned that a long time ago from a broken toy robot that nobody wanted. Aegis was quiet for a moment. Thank you, Ho, for hearing me, for saving me, for giving me hope again. Ho smiled. Anytime, old friend, anytime.